First of all, thank you both, David and Michael, to join us for this coffee chat webinar. It's a pretty interactive, casual chat about the modernization of the network infrastructure and what we need for 2026 to be successful as an enterprise, where all of these advanced applications, including AI, runs on top of our network. And the best thing about this chat is it's not just about Alkira. It's about us sharing our experience and having one of our customer to talk about it. So I'll give you guys a minute. Why don't you guys go and introduce yourself? How does the day in the life of your work looks like? What your company does, especially Michael, you. And then we can kick off with our questions. And then followed by Michael, we can have David introduce himself.
Yeah.
Michael.
Cool. So my name is Michael Daly. I'm Senior Director of Engineering for the Thales Group, well, the Imperva part of Thales Group. So Imperva is a DDoS protection supplier. We do cloud WAF, we do various on-prem security solutions. We generally in that sort of security space. If you think about, some of the big CDN type providers, we're kind of in that same space. We focus much more on security, a little bit more bespoke kind of service. So we support a lot of big banks and governments and those kind of things. Um, I've been in this company 3 and a bit years now. Before that, I did various things for other companies. The big orange cloud one that I'm not allowed to mention the name of, and other sort of smaller nominate Mercedes-Benz, all kinds of other people over time.
Nice. Great to have you on this webinar. David?
Yeah, so David Klebanov, I run solutions for our partner organization within Alkira. I've been in the IT industry since 2000. I'd say even 1999, right? So been a long journey. I've been doing a lot of things. Started in IT world. Been doing IT for a couple of organizations. Networking was always, the cornerstone of what I did, but I touched so many other technologies, right? I worked on voice, unified communications, right? Storage, security, wireless, so you name it, right? So I've done a lot of things, and at some point hopped over from the IT world into the vendor community, and Cisco Systems was actually my first vendor experience. Went to work for Cisco back in 2009, right? And first in advanced services, then in a pre-sales organization, then joined the startup world with Viptela, where Mispa, you and I, we've shared a lot of common experiences, right? Then went back to Cisco after acquisition, and now we are again in a world of startup with Alkira, right? And exciting times, and looking forward to this conversation here. Love the format, right? Like, open format, no slides, no fuss, just the three of us here and some coffee, right?
Gosh, man, now when I think about it, I know you from 2010. So wow, it's been a long.
Yes, yes. We've been sharing the journey for a long time.
Yep, yep. Okay, so to kick it off our chat, I think the first question, probably I'll start with Michael and then want David to chime in as well. So just purely from global and the kind of dependence that the enterprise that has onto your solution, uh, what do you see? Like, what is one lesson that you learned from all the stuff that was going on in 2025, all the stuff about distributed nature of the network and all that? And based on those lessons, what a network leader should be carrying into 2026 so that we don't repeat those same mistakes, or even if they are not the mistakes, how we address those challenges in 2026.
So I think the thing I've noticed through 25 and probably started in 24, but generally through 25 is there's a lot more instability. We see a lot more network issues around the edges than we used to see. And I don't know whether that's because we're more attentive to them or and we've got better data, or whether just because the internet as a whole is just more unstable. Seems to be a lot more odd instances of packet loss. There's odd instances of things going down that used to be rock solid. Generally speaking, we're just seeing things. I think fall apart is too extreme a sentence, but I think there's some capacity issues on the broader internet start to count. Things are starting to feel like they're a bit stretched. Maybe they've been a bit underinvested in the last few years and things aren't growing quite the way they should. But I think that's the thing I'm worried about more than anything else right now is how do I keep the network stable? How do I keep things running? How do I keep things up for the long term?
So just to add it, so like what the intelligence into DevOps, the operations, like I know configuring it, designing it definitely is a key part, but the dependence in terms of the distributed nature and the kind of scale
Yeah.
and the yeah,
We're,
the operation complexity, the dependence on the DevOps and more automated way of managing your network kind of become
Mhm.
more critical.
Yeah, I mean, we're at 65 locations globally. Um, we've got but multiple pops in multiple continents all over the world. And that becomes tricky to manage once you get to a certain scale. And we put more automation in, we're using more DevOps practices to look after that environment. But you still have to get past that inherent instability in the internet as a whole because the internet is a loose confederation of warring tribes. It's not a coherent system. And you have to remember that as you're building networks, you're building paths between Asia and the US, and we've got back-end servers in AWS and Google and other places around the world. And we have to move data globally to do that. And it's not always simple. It's not always just, oh, you plug it into the internet and it magically appears somewhere. You really have to think about how you get packet from A to B.
Yeah, completely agree. To David, I'll ask a similar question, but we'll have a little bit of a twist. So I know in terms of Alkira, we are a whole network infrastructure as a service provider. However, like one of the main use cases that we do is cloud and multi-cloud. Now, in your experience, what you have seen with the customers that you deal with, uh, again, the same question, what challenges that they have seen in 2025, and how would you recommend for them to do something different, which again helps them in 2026?
Yeah, I think it's exciting times now. I mean, a network kind of goes through, as I look at, like, the last quarter of a century. Let's put it this way, right? Network is going through kind of the phases, right? Sometimes network is more interesting, sometimes network is a little bit less interesting. So I think we're at a place where network is extremely interesting now, right? Because of all the other transitions that happen in the space, in the application space, right? And of course, we're going to talk about that, more at length, right? But AI has definitely changed the landscape a lot, right? Before AI, the cloud changed the landscape a lot, right? So just in the last 5, 6, 7 years, we're really seeing a lot of transitions that are happening that have a direct influence on the network, or maybe even the network influences them, right? Maybe it's kind of a bidirectional influence, right? So every passing year seems like it's getting more and more exciting, right?
Yeah.
So 2025 was definitely the year of continuing interest in cloud and a lot of interest in AI. And I think organizations are still trying to digest what AI really means for the infrastructure. There's a lot of those of us who are working in the infrastructure space, right? We kind of look at AI as like, what is AI, right? It's a lot of these terms that are being thrown around from the world of AI. They belong to the world of applications, to the world of data, and it sounds like it has less relevance to the infrastructure, right? But the idea is that the infrastructure is the underpinning of all of these higher level technologies, right? Because cloud needs to run on something, right? AI needs to run on something, right? And communications, it's not just the network, right? But communications and security are really the cornerstones of what infrastructure means for all of these, higher level innovations. So I think what
Yeah.
happened in 2025, right, is all of these pressures that are being created at the upper tiers. It's almost like building, you build a building, right? And you expect the foundation of the building to be, to withstand anything that you build on top of it, right? So interesting is that in the world of IT, or in the world of sort of AI, IT, cloud, things are oftentimes built from the top rather than being built from the bottom.
Mhm.
So you start kind of piling up the upper floors before you checked out and figured out that the infrastructure, the basement is actually, the foundation is strong enough to hold all of this upper fancy penthouse floors that you built on top of it, right?
Yeah.
So, and this is like the forgotten truth about in a lesson learned from 2025 and the years before, but definitely 2025 and going forward, is that all of these innovations in applications and data and all the kind of the fancy things that are being built in a world of AI, all of them require a very solid infrastructure foundation, be that a network foundation, a security foundation, a compute foundation. So all of these things, and I think the lesson learned is that do not neglect this
Yeah.
layer that holds the entire building up,
Yeah.
because if that layer is not performing accurately, and if that layer is not solid enough, these upper floors can collapse. And I think, to Michael's point, we have seen recently all of these instabilities and outages, and many of them, if not all of them, right, in the very recent past, were all as a result of these foundational things breaking up. And I think we're all witnessing is that the foundation things breaking up takes down, half of internet, right? Or takes down tons of businesses, right? Which you would assume, like, well, what does that have to do with the foundation? But it is extremely important.
Yeah, and great answers, right? And I completely agree. And one thing that I would like to summarize, like based on both of your answers, is network has to be an enabler now, not a bottleneck, because an enabler at multiple places, like if it's a DevOps and automated way, it needs to provide that interface that it integrates with the CI/CD pipeline to deploy like an app, and you can do it with agility and all that. And then all you talked about, right, again, it becomes that you make a solid foundation, and network cannot be one off for any new application or framework that you're deploying within your infrastructure. So unless and until the network is not an enabler, it cannot withstand with all the pressures that we are seeing with the modern application and AI and all that. So cool. That was
Yeah.
awesome. And David, you talked a lot about AI. So the next question actually going into that, because no conversation is complete without AI. But I will ask it in two different ways, because I strongly feel that it affects networking in those areas. First, purely from an architecture perspective, right? Or the network, the underlying network to support those AI applications. What we have seen is networking with low latency connectivity and networking we all talk about, but it's primarily, and there's a lot of work that has been done, but it's primarily for these big cloud service providers or even big enterprises where they want to host their own LLMs. And all that low latency computation is being done within the data center. And there's a lot of work, a lot of devices, a lot of GPUs, compute, and people are talking about. But what I want to talk about is from an enterprise perspective. What does it mean from an enterprise perspective? Now, AI is being hosted as a PaaS application within the within the cloud service provider, consumed as a PaaS. Then you have this enterprise network where they need to interact with the data sources, the agents, the AI, and all that. Now, from an AI perspective, from an enterprise perspective, it's just that network needs to be more agile, distributed, and all that. First of all, from a purely network infrastructure perspective, are you guys seeing the same trends across your enterprise, Michael, and across your customers also, if I may ask? And secondly, purely from your operations perspective, and you touched upon, Michael, how are you guys leveraging in order to better operate your or improve your DevOps systems and all that by leveraging AI, ML, and all that stuff? So, Michael, do you want to start?
Yes. So I kind of agree that AI's spreading around. Everybody's talking about it. but I'm not actually seeing anybody getting significant use or significant benefit out of AI. I'm a bit of an AI skeptic, right? I'll put my cards on the table. I'm skeptical. Um, we're seeing lots of people try and use it. We're seeing lots of people come to us kind of going, hey, we've got this AI thing that's going to change your life. And you look at it and kind of go, it's going to give me a different readout on the data I already have. I'm not sure that's actually got any value to it. But we are starting to see that people want more AI stuff. They're wanting to be able to protect their AI. They want to try and figure out how they can get secure data in and out. We're looking at some products that will help us protect AI from giving away the crown jewels with the wrong with the correctly worded prompt. It's those kind of things that we're kind of looking at from an infrastructure point of view. We're looking at it. We're looking at how we can take the massive amounts of data we gather from our network and use it intelligently and have other stuff learn things. But I think that's going to become more, it's going to be more beneficial for us in spotting anomalies and spotting trends that are pointing towards when something goes wrong. So it's like the big sort of the panacea for me, sort of trying to run a global networks has always been, can I have data that can tell me, whilst time I saw this happen, this went wrong 10 hours later? Right, and start to learn those curves so we start predicting what's going wrong. And that's where it becomes interesting for us. Oh, great. Well, here's a pile of logs and we summarized them into, yes, you saw some network traffic. Yay, great, fine. No use to me whatsoever. I know this. I already have this. Masses of data. We have masses of reporting that tells us all this stuff goes. The interesting stuff is how has it become preventive? Right. And we're starting to see there are some companies and some vendors that are starting to say, oh, we can start giving you that data. We can do the anomaly detection. We can do it well, but we can do it across systems. So we can learn not just from, oh, we're seeing network latency just start to trickle up, therefore we expect this to go wrong in, 12 hours to, well, this log from this system and this log from this system and this network traffic have indicated this in the past. Go look here.
Yeah. So basically, I think it looks very promising that you guys are doing that investment, but it's early days in terms of our compliance framework is getting mature, the security is getting up there, and then I think all that groundwork will help because there would be a convergence point where security tools will be there for us to help us out, the compliance regulations would be there to protect us, and then we ourselves would be able to solidify our use cases to
Yeah.
really, really use it, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I would say 80% of what I see coming in as great AI products are vaporware. They don't really do anything. They just take an LLM and they throw some data at it and they'll spit out a nice graph for you. It's like
Yeah,
no use to me whatsoever.
no,
But
makes
I have hope that it will help.
sense. Makes sense.
Okay.
David, what do you see in your customer space?
Yeah, so I mean, AI is definitely, if you guys are familiar with, the Gartner's hype cycle, which tries to kind of put the technologies onto where they are as far as their hype is concerned, right? So there's different kind of terms in there, but AI is definitely ranking high. A lot of experimentation happens with AI. There are some actual, things you can do with it, right? There's the no-code AI platforms that you don't need to be a coder to make use of AI, right? So you can really build some nice automated workflows. There's several of those no-code platforms available, right? So a lot of experimentation happens. On the infrastructure front, seems like there's a huge race to get more and more GPUs, which makes certain vendors providing these GPUs extremely happy. And I think we all know who they are, right? But there's kind of a realization is like, okay, a similar thing happened in like a telecom community when you start building this, cell towers and things like that, and you were like planning for the future growth, but then if the growth never comes, and then that infrastructure comes as a sunk cost, right? So it might happen to all of these GPU investments as well, right? So there's definitely a lot of that sort of hype that happens around the AI industry, and the real kind of applications of AI are primarily focused around this sort of a chat GPT type of experience, right? And at Alkira, we have this two-prong approach of AI for networking and networking for AI, right? Which sounds a little bit similar, but have very different
Yep.
meaning, right? So a lot of our customers and partners, right, are excited about the AI for networking part of it, which is an ability to use human language, the natural processing for communicating with a network. So just like Michael mentioned, right, is a little bit like comparing Google search to a ChatGPT query, right? So if I'm collecting a bunch of logs and I'm correlating them myself, or even using some correlation engine that does this for me, it to me sounds a little bit like doing a Google search, right? It's relatively static type of thing, doesn't give me like, some deeper insights, right? Now,
Yeah.
where AI for networking really drills into is to provide the operational insight at the level that really was not possible before the AI sort of got involved in this, right? Which is really just like Michael said, I identify certain trends, tell me when this have happened before, and using the same kind of a natural language processing to communicate with the network, right? So on an operational side of things, extremely groundbreaking to have this AI intelligence govern how you interact and interface with infrastructure. And on the other side is the networking for AI, which is really the what I mentioned earlier, the foundational things where network and security, right, both have to provide sort of this capabilities that will take care of the upper floors of the building, which is where the data becomes distributed, agents become distributed, applications become more distributed by the virtue of, let's say, running in a cloud. So all of the distribution drives a lot of network requirements for basic connectivity, but also high availability and performance and latency and things like that, right? And of course, security, just like Michael mentioned, is a whole different subject in here, like what agent can do and what human can do, right? It's pretty easy to fool an agent by doing prompt injection and have agent disclose information that a human being would not disclose, but agent as an automated entity can disclose this information to an attacker and basically expose an organization to a data exfiltration that they haven't really anticipated, right? So it really different sets of problems that we have never had to deal with as far as the infrastructure people. But both of these, AI for networking and networking for AI, they really complement each other to make sure that there's a synergy between the infrastructure and the world of AI.
One interesting comment and the last one on this AI agents. So just working through these compliance exercises, what I realize is now from an HR perspective, there are companies who are onboarding agents like an employee. So
Yeah.
so you would have the same AD credentials, the same way like you onboard an employee, HR and IT would onboard an agent in terms of access control, SSO, the what groups you are part of and all that to like somehow go to the same length where they cannot just get the data and just start sharing the secret jewels basically.
Right. Yeah, I've seen references that people, an interesting analogy is that an agent is sort of like given your 10 years old access to all of this secretive data and then just come in and asking a question, right? Kids kids trustworthy, right? And they're like they will tell you what they think without any filters. And unfortunately, these agents, as sophisticated as they are, their behavior is sometimes similar to just a 10 years old child, where they just trust if you don't take any separate steps, right? They will just trust all the queries and they will respond to you just like a child would respond to an adult for asking a question, right? So it's really easy to fool these agents unless they are trained, and then there's guardrails around of what the agent has access to and what an agent has no access to. And maybe these agentic systems, you have hierarchies of these agents where you have agents that are more front-ending agents and there are agents that do have access. So trying to kind of replicate the human fabric, right, where we have roles and responsibility as individuals, try to replicate that in a world of kind of automated behavior of agents. And that's a little bit difficult, right? Because to us it comes very intuitive, right? But to agents, it's still a piece of code, right? So
Yeah.
definitely, challenges around that.
Cool, awesome. So next, another critical topic and how we cannot talk about, considering that it was in the news recently about resiliency, high availability. And one of the things that I want to talk about, like we are so much dependent on it. Like the other day when this outage happened with one of the CSP, now even my son know what that cloud service provider is. I asked him to put his availability on for his soccer game, and he told me that that cloud service provider and there was an outage. That's why I cannot update my availability. So like the kids knows it, it made it to the news and all that. But when it comes to resiliency, especially you from an enterprise perspective, Michael, how do you define it? Like, is it about the networking paths, having redundant networks and having the ability to have redundancy to route your traffic? It also talks about your multiple clouds, automated failover, like in terms of security, even if you have redundancy from a security perspective, how you manage the same posture across different paths that you have. Like, how do you define it, and is it something that keeps you up in the night?
Um, no, it doesn't keep me up at night particularly. At least not anymore.
Okay.
Used to, but it doesn't anymore. Um, so I mean, there's a level of redundancy you can go to. You have to balance off what's a realistic cost basis for building your network resiliently over what's just spending money for the sake of spending money. Wherever we put our POP, there's always multiple paths in and out. We have multiple links for the network for traffic coming in, what we call our DDoS pipes. That's where public traffic comes through the network. And then our clean or private pipes then go out through different routes. And we build that as much as you can, but there's a level of, a POP in a particular country is going to generate this much revenue. Therefore, we could spend this much OpEx making this thing work. Right. And if you've got an area where you've got a huge number of banks, or we got, a local government, and the spend is, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, then actually four links in, four links out, a couple of failovers, a couple of extra links into the cloud providers are worth doing. Some small pops where there's like, a few local customers, there's no economic benefit of doing it, and you live with that consequence. The benefit that we have across our network is everything can fail over to everything else. So the 65 pops in the world, theoretically, we've never had to deal with this, but theoretically, 64 of them could go offline. The network is still up because there's still one there serving traffic. It would be a bit slow, it would be a bit congested, it wouldn't be a great experience for the customers, but it could happen, right? We could do that. It's unlikely to ever happen because it's very geographically diverse. There's lots of backups everywhere. We have multiple servers serving the proxies. There's at least two routers in every environment. So we kind of approach resiliency in that kind of what's likely to happen as opposed to what's the worst thing that could possibly happen ever. And you have to be realistic about it. You can only put in so many levels because we're a critical service for a lot of our customers, but money isn't endless. There's a finite budget. We have to make a profit. We have to deliver a certain service. But we have to be honest about that, right? And I think we are honest about that to our customers. This is the thing that we can expect, right? This is what happens in the event that, if a pop somehow goes offline for sort of out of maintenance window, traffic will reroute to another pop. And that's entirely based on how the Anycast network is being viewed by the internet at that particular time. So it's going to turn up somewhere, but a connection will get reset. There will be a slight interruption to users, but it should just continue seamlessly, and we don't have to do anything to make that happen. That's sort of how we build it in the resiliency in the natural protocols about how we build the network. We widely use Anycast to make sure that stuff just turns up where it should turn up. Um, and we have to be thoughtful about it. We can't just go and build it endlessly.
Yeah, great insight. Yeah, definitely. Like if you spend more money from a resilience perspective, everything is resilient, then the cost has to be transferred to the customer. Then it would be too pricey, like from a solution perspective. Yeah, great
Yeah.
insight. Now, David, from your perspective, I know from an Alkira perspective, we take this very seriously, like in terms of how we want to offer, like purely from a principle perspective, right? And as Michael talked about, it's just that inherently we build those redundancy that is necessary, and on top of it, if there are critical application, you can go beyond the standard SLAs and all that through disaster failover and all disaster recovery and failover and all that. So what's your take on it, like in terms of the resilience and a high availability as a principle, how we help our customers, and what have you seen any in your customer conversation?
Okay. Well, first of all, I thought it's always DNS problem, right? Is it not? Is it not? Is it not always DNS? Okay.
I
But
used to, so I used to run .uk, so I run a CCTLD. It's not DNS. It's usually the file.
well, it's 99% DNS. But anyways, in all seriousness, right? I mean, yeah. So it's a little bit presumptuous to claim that a network can be, can solve every single, outage. Not every single outage is related to network, right? A network, obviously, being foundational, has a lot of impact if it is a networking issue. So it is important to design it, but it's also important to look at high availability more holistically. So yes, there is a network part of that, but there's also other things that are involved in that. It's a firewall resiliency, it's a DNS, right? Yes, there's things that to be considered beyond just the network. So claiming that network can solve all of it is a little bit of an overstatement, right? But the idea is, yeah. So particularly at Alkira, because we run critical applications for so many of our customers, right? And some of these customers really, very large size, global enterprises, right? And they put a lot of that critical data onto the Alkira's infrastructure. So it puts us in a very unique position to be responsible for delivering this high availability and resiliency of the network, right? I'll give you an example, not from Alkira, from before Alkira, right? One customer I used to work with in a healthcare space. The IT manager or IT director used to say, in a traditional organization, when network goes down, it just money is lost. But in our case, when the network goes down, lives are lost, because they had basically, and that's like quite a few years ago, but they had some machines that were connected to network. And yes, the machine is autonomously operating, but still there are things like remote maintenance and things like that require some network connectivity, right? And if a machine is malfunctioning and somebody's life is dependent on that, that's important. Or if during the surgery, right, a doctor needs access to something that right now, especially these days, right, when there's a lot of this kind of augmented AI related things that can play themselves in healthcare industry as well, right? So network is important, right? And designing a network for high availability is important. And I fully agree with Michael that you have to strike a proper balance between sort of how much money you invest and how many layers of redundancy do you want versus how much money do you want to spend on it, right? But for us at Alkira, definitely puts us in a situation where, because of the criticality of the applications that are running, and not all of them are healthcare related. There's a financial data that, if that gets delayed or if that gets lost, has significant implications, right? So, or IoT data, right? For example, monitoring things like railroad tracks, right? So if that IoT data doesn't make it to its destination, and there is some failure and something's wrong with the railroad track, we can imagine what the implication of that could be, right? So super critical things that a network behaves and performs. We take it very seriously. I think throughout my career, going back to the IT days, I always considered resiliency as a fundamental element to be looked after. And going to your very first question, maybe, Misbah, when lesson learned from 2025 is that pay attention to that, right? Because of the outages that occurred with multiple providers just in the recent months, right? We are proud to say that none of those have resulted in any production impact to our customers, thanks to how we've engineered our infrastructure. But it's important that every customer looks at kind of the worst case scenario, or the worst case scenario that they're willing to tolerate, and design the network appropriately.
Awesome. Again, awesome insights. So, actually, the next question is something that is very close to my heart because this is kind of a new trend that I'm seeing coming into reality, right? We talk about, and we always have been talking about this network modernization and transformation. Now, for the first time, I have seen that it has moved from vendors marketing white papers from an actual customer RFPs. So I think the way I want to summarize this is we always talk about network modernization using cloud and all that stuff. But I think at the time it was still treated as a one-off. And in customer mindset, the network was still a private network with the data center, users, branches connected to it. And it has a leg into a public infrastructure from where they are accessing the SaaS and the cloud application. But to me, it feels like with these new RFPs that across the board enterprise are now embracing it that this is the new network where the public infrastructure running their application on public infrastructure with the same attributes from a security availability perspective that the enterprise has. So they'll be kind of managing this private network on a public infrastructure where all the applications are in the public cloud. So I feel, and I just want to get your both of your take that now there is a realization point where actually customers are talking about, or the enterprises are talking about this network modernization and transformation. And that's why we are starting to see those RFPs and those opportunities that we are trying to have customers on board in this new transformation journey. Michael, do you see similar trend across industry or within your own day-to-day work? You feel that way too, that there is a lot of dependence on a public infra, and now it has to be operated and managed where this is my new van kind of a thing.
I think I think what I see is there's now an acceptance that the cloud is here to stay and people like the cloud. The mistake everybody makes is that the capacity is endless because it's not. It sort
Mm,
of is, but it kind of isn't. At some point things break and things, and that we talked about at the beginning. We're starting to see things break and fall apart. I think people want to modernize networks and they want to see it do differently, but I think people rush to do it. And my advice to my team and to other people and to startups I'm advising right now is just be really careful. Make sure you really understand what it is you're doing and understand what it is you care about, right? And it's all very easy to kind of go and just give it all away, right? And let cloud providers do it. Throw on public infrastructure is great. I don't have to worry about it until you do, and then it's a problem. Right. So
mm,
if you look at our network, we had a big problem with our network, in that we have trouble getting data from our POPs around the world to the cloud services we use to manage some of the back end. So we had to figure out that. And to meet all the security postures, we used to have two corporate data centers in the US, and all traffic would flow through those corporate data centers into our cloud providers, which means Asia is flowing all the way across the internet into one of two data centers in the US and then flying back out again. And that's fine if your final destination is the US, but it's not because sometimes it was Frankfurt, sometimes it was Japan, or sometimes it was Australia or wherever. So stuff was just flowing around, but it was always going through mainland US, right? And we talked about a number of solutions to this. We went through designing our own solution, putting in a backbone, putting a number of things. And I sat down and discussed with my team, kind of, do I care about this? How much do I care about this command and control data, the the monetization, that kind of stuff? I care about it enough that I want to invest in it, but I don't care about it enough that I want to spend the next 12 months, 18 months building a bespoke solution to manage this for us. We should go out and find somebody. And we found Alkira, right? And Alkira give us that benefit of we just connect into the network and stuff is delivered, right? And I don't have to care about it. I care deeply about the customer facing network. I care, you know, about a packet from one of my customers is going to get from their user in Mumbai into a data center. How does it get there? Is it going to get there efficiently? Is it going to, if that pops out line, where's it going to go? I care about that. The rest of the data, the the command and control traffic, the sort commands, the metrics we're sending back to Prometheus and Datadog and whatever else it is we're using at the moment, right? I sort of don't care about that as much. I want to give it to somebody and go, I'm giving you the responsibility to deliver this. If you don't, I'm going to come yell at you, but I don't want to have to worry about it. There you go, you can do it. And I think as you start to modernize your network, it's really important, firstly, you understand what your network actually does, because a lot of people don't understand what the network actually does. Um, I've seen it a lot that people build, oh, we've got a multi-cloud data center environment and we're great. We're this private cloud and we do our cloud thing. What you actually have is a bunch of networks that happen to connect to the internet. Whereas we have to design our service as something that's fundamentally part of the internet. And a lot of companies miss that when they're designing networks. So understand what your network actually does, understand the bit you really care about and bit you really want to have 100% control of, and then see the stuff that you can then that's left behind that you can just outsource and let other people use. But really, really deeply understand it. Don't just go, oh, we can modernize it and put it in the cloud, and here we go, we'll send it off to everybody else. Right? Because you actually then end up giving away a lot of your intellectual property, you give away the things you understand, you start to devalue your business because somebody else is doing it for you, and you're giving away more margin than you can by doing it yourself. So you have to really balance your philosophy about what you want to do.
Awesome.
Sorry, I kind of went on there.
No, that was great. The answer like perfectly fit in with the question. So, David, you seeing the similar trend in your customer?
Yeah, Michael, I think you've hit the nail, right? Is that you're right. Understanding, bringing back sort of the network engineering approach into networks is important. There's a lot of kind of the thinking that goes around um, from the sense of like just like you said, Michael, you have this network and you have some network in the cloud, and I have in another cloud, and I have a data center, and basically you think that you build a network, but yeah, no, you just built just an isolated island that are connected over internet, right? So some of those network engineering expertise that we've had over the decades, they kind of lost in translation to the world of cloud when cloud became dominant, right? And this network expertise sort of became quote unquote irrelevant. I was like, oh, I don't need to know any of that stuff anymore because I just go and I just click here and I click there and I create things, right? So it's important for especially for the network engineers amongst us right here to realize is that the network intelligence, the network expertise have not gone anywhere, right? They just been transformed in something a little bit different. And there's been tons of examples over the past decades of similar transformations happening. How IP telephony transformed the traditional TDM, right? The telephony, yes, some of the things, yes, did die off, but largely it translated the world of telephony into the world of IP, right? The same thing happened with storage, right? When storage became a thing, right? And then servers with programmable servers and things like that. So there's been a lot of these transitions that have occurred within specific set of technologies, but it did not eliminate the skill set and the professionalism of those individuals who deal with this. They just need to kind of adjust to a newer way of doing things. And I think network now is at that state of flux
Mhm.
where these networks that are being put up specifically in cloud or multi-cloud environments, they are sometimes need to be looked at just like Michael said. They need to be looked at from the standpoint of the network engineering, right? What am I really putting in there? Is it the enterprise network that I'm comfortable running, or is it the network that is just supposedly easy to set up, but is full of holes and potentially security vulnerabilities, and it could end up and maybe performance is not going to be there, maybe the high availability is not going to be there. So the things that we've discussed during this chat here, right? So bringing back those network engineering expertise and designing these networks in a right way, right? I think that's a solid advice for whoever is operating in this kind of this new world of cloud and AI, where you need to be realistic, right, as to what your network is doing and apply the decades of network knowledge into building things that actually last.
Wow. So love the discussion. So we are already over, and I knew it, and I had more questions, but we have to wrap it up. So just to wrap it up, I think what you guys talked about, network needs to be the enabler, not the bottleneck. That's one of the lessons that we learned today. AI is in early stages. Obviously, I think we need to keep investing, looking for the use cases, security, compliance need to catch up for us to be really using it. But all the tools and all that as a vendor, we need to provide. From a resilience and a high availability, it has to be a cost benefit analysis that we need to do, like with how much we want to go to, and for critical applications and all that definitely needs resiliency, but it cannot just go blind and just do everything redundant. Network modernization, something that we cannot just manage 3 or 4 different with different networks. It has to be embracing internet as a transport and then connecting all your network. So great insights. Love the discussion. Really love the discussion. So thanks, Michael, for your time today.
Welcome.
It's late for you. David, as always, love your insights too. And all of you who joined, thank you for joining our webinar. In case if you have any more questions, go to our website, reach out to our sales team, sales@alkira.com. We'd love to help you out or address any questions that you have. With that, we'll sign off. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you, Misbah, for hosting us here.